Wine Surger Advent Calendar 2024.
And it is clinging to the sides of the glass.
It's so beautiful.
Hello there. Welcome to day 9 of the Wine Searcher Advent Calendar, looking at the wines of the Americas. For you today, we are looking at a Uruguayan Tannat. So this is our second Uruguayan wine, and that's from the same producer as the Albarino we had on day 2, Bodega Garzón. This is their 2019 Single Vineyard Tannat. So Tannat, a great variety that Uruguay has very much made its own. It has its origins in southwest France, in the Maldonado region, where the wines can be big, structured, deep, dark and intense. Now the winery here, Bodega Garzón, is a relatively new winery, started by somebody called Alejandro Bulgheroni, and he had an olive farm, a place called near the town of Garzón, in the Maldonado wine region, and my understanding is that he bought the farm with the consideration to turn it into a wind farm. However, in 2007 he met somebody called Alberto Antonini, who was an enologist, and he asked Antonini to look at his estate. The conclusion that came back was that this was an estate that would be well suited to turning into a winery. Alberto saw its similarities to Tuscany, an area he knew very well, and also to Galicia, both of these wine producing areas near the ocean. Here the estate lies between Garzón, which is about 20 miles inland from the Atlantic. This is about 10 miles inland from the coast, and the site has a wide variety of different aspects and soil types. And so they work very hard with what is quite a large estate, it's about 240 hectares, to identify the different plots, to find which grape varieties worked on them best. And eventually they've divided the estate up into about 1,000 different plots. Now this is a single vineyard wine, and this comes from one plot which is at higher altitude than most of the Tannat vineyards, and it has quite shallow soils. So it's in a place where ripening is a little later, where because of the cooling resulting from the altitude is that you get a better balance with more freshness left in the fruit when it's ripe. But also the quite shallow soils here with plentiful gravel mean that the vines are slightly less vigorous. That helps to restrict the vine, so it's producing a smaller, more concentrated crop of Tannat fruit. And here we're not talking about an area of vineyard monoculture. This area of vineyards is surrounded by rich forests with a lot of native plants, particularly a native palm growing in that area. And amongst that you have outcrops of the granite rock, which is quite close to the surface in this area as well. So as I say, it's a single varietal wine, it's 100% Tannat. Everything's hand-picked and sorted, and at the winery it's destemmed, it's crushed, and it's left at cool temperature to do a pre-fermentation cold soak, and that goes on for 5 days. What happens during that period is that without the presence of alcohol, you get the gentle extraction of colour and perfume from the fruit. So the aromas are enhanced by the practice, and the colour should be good and deep. Fermentation took place in 80 hectolitre, so that's 8,000 litre concrete tanks. And actually, when you're fermenting reds, concrete tanks can be quite good for that because they actually keep the heat, they maintain a constant temperature throughout the fermentation. There was temperature regulation, and fermentation was done between 26 and 28 degrees C, just to make sure that the extraction was quite gentle and that you weren't taking harsh tannins out of the fruit. The regulation of extraction was done by pumping over the ferments twice daily, so pumping fruit from the bottom of the tank up to the top and over the cap of skins that was pushed up by the carbon dioxide being off that floats on the top, and that keeps that wet, and that ensures there's still extraction going on that way. The wine then aged in oak, but it didn't age in small barrels, it aged in 2,500 or 5,000 litre French oak casks. These were untoasted, and these casks weren't toasted, so we're talking about sort of older vats, I think. So I'm not expecting there to be too much oak influence on the flavour of this. It's more a question of the air being able to get in gently and slowly between the staves of the oak, just to stabilise the wine and allow the fixing of the colours, the tannins and the aromas after the ferment. So aging went on for 12 to 18 months and the wine aged with its lees. I should also mention that the winery here is set up to be as sustainable as possible. It's a brand new state-of-the-art architect designed winery and it's certified as LEED, which is Leadership in Ecological and Environmental Design certification. So what I'm hoping to see here is a really high quality example of Uruguayan Tannat, something made in quite a modern style, something rich, full and ripe and made in a really modern style. So let's have a look at it, shall we? First thing I'd say is that the colour is deep, it's dark, it's virtually opaque. As I look down through the wine, I can't actually see the stem of the glass at the bottom there. Swelling it, the wine is labelled as having 14.5% alcohol and you can see it's clinging to the side of the glass and gradually forming tears there. So that's a combination of the higher alcohol and the plentiful tannins in here, making this viscous. So let's see what we make of the aroma, shall we? Yes, the aromas are ripe, they're intense. The ripe nature is of a black fruit, almost like black plums. I'm thinking of damsons, bullis, that sort of thing. There's almost a sort of a rich, pruny overripeness. There are meaty hints. There's not particularly notes of oak. There may be just the tiniest touch of vanilla coming through there. So maybe I'm wrong, maybe there is a little oak. So let's have a taste, shall we? On the palate, the wine is dry, but it's also drying. It's rich, it's full, it's structured, but the tannins across the middle of my mouth almost have a sort of a spicy, slightly bitter drying note. There's a touch of a bitter black licorice there. It's not massively astringent. The fruit is able, although there is a drying sensation, the fruit is able to come through. I can still taste those black plum notes, those prune notes, perhaps hints of raisin, hints of black licorice, sweet licorice, Pontefract cake, that sort of thing. It's rounded, it's rich, there's a juiciness to the fruit, and that's because of the freshness. I can feel the acidity making me salivate on the edges of my tongue. I mean, it's not particularly sharp, but there's enough acidity to keep the fruit lively. There isn't particularly an oak note, rather it is this rich, deep, dark fruit. I mean, the wine is a 2019, so it has some good age behind it. A slightly drying note of the tannin. You could perhaps keep it for another year or two just to let those soften. But as long as you are having this with rich food, I think that would help it pair with rich sauces, full-bodied meats, ripe cheeses, those sorts of things. I think this is quite a versatile wine from that point of view. And while I don't think it needs aging, I'm sure you could pop that in your cellar for 5 or 6 years if you wanted to. Such as the concentration, such as the richness of the fruit, the alcohol, the freshness of the acidity, all those being factors that will help the wine to age. In terms of the wine's balance, its alcohol is warming, you can feel that there, but the warmth of the alcohol isn't overpowering the fruit. There's a really concentrated, as I say, that sort of licoricey core of black fruit there that's sufficient to come past the alcohol and leave the black fruit notes and the rich licorice notes on the finish. The finish is lasting quite well. I think the tannins are carrying the fruit and giving it good length. I think the freshness is helping that to happen as well. It's giving a lovely length to the fruit. So yes, I think this is a great value wine. It's a rich, ripe, modern style wine. It hasn't got the astringency that you would get with some sort of classic old-fashioned Madarin from southwest France, from Tannat. This is a really lovely example of a nicely made Tannat, showing the level that wines from Uruguay can achieve. So thank you so much for joining us. I do hope you've enjoyed the tasting. Do join us again tomorrow for day 10 of our trip around the Americas. Till then, bye for now.